Hello and welcome back to Swamp School Live. I am Mark Seelinger. I am the director and founder of the Swamp School, and I want to welcome you to our show today. We've got a lot to cover. We've had kind of a busy week, and it has been quite exciting in terms of a lot of things that have been going on. So I want to kind of go over some of that in terms of some of the issues related to ARDRs and the new RRS thing and all that stuff related to wetlands and so forth. Before we get started, though, I want to do a couple shout outs. We've got a couple people to talk about. Our newest, actually, we have our good old sponsor of Kaze in Garner. Highly recommend them if you are a fan of steak or actually seafood or sushi or just about anything. They've got something for you. Definitely mention the Swamp School when you go there. They might even give you something for it. But it is a great place to go, and they've been a good friend to the Swamp School, so we want to thank them for that. We also have another sponsor that we want to let you know about, which is Carolina Habitats. These guys are a native plant nursery. They're in Chapel Hill, just a little bit out in the country near Carborough, a little bit west of Carborough. And if you need native plants for your project, your wetland project, or anything like that, they are definitely the folks to reach out to. They've got some pretty interesting material. They're also very big into contract growing. So if you have a big project, they definitely want to talk to you about that. So reach out to them. This is their, just look up Carolina Habitats and their email is there. There's carolinahabitats.com if you need the URL there, and definitely reach out to them. So let me go back to me, and a lot of buttons to push here. Just a reminder, this is a call-in show, and I guess we never made this clear. we're not a Zoom call. So if you're looking for a Zoom number or anything like that, you're definitely welcome to try that, but it's not going to work. So the issue is that we have a very different system. It's pretty much a, it is a site that basically does pretty much the same thing a radio show or a TV show would use. It's a pretty fancy system. So it is not Zoom, it's a broadcast, and we definitely want to have you check this out. So call in 919-297-2540 if you're listening to us in the car. We can do that. We also have added, if you're looking at the stream on our website, we have added a Q&A box. So if you don't want to call in, you can Q&A in there, and we will answer your questions as we go. And speaking of which, let me switch over to, I had a question here somewhere. I had a caller. Actually, somebody had sent in a question. This is another way you can send questions in. Let me put this up here and switch that one. You can send a support ticket in, basically, and ask for offline questions. And the question I got was from Dr. Lynette down in Florida, and she wanted to know if we had requested a NPR, which actually has taken on a new term. I mean, no permit required, or really what it comes down to is a no PCN required, and that is basically an issue there. But it is, let me just check my live stream here, make sure our Q&A is on. Here we go. I got to start the Q&A. That would help. Okay. It's got a note that I need to turn on the Q&A. Let me go back to the question, and I lost it because I had it over here. Here it is. Okay. So we have the the Q&A box should be up on the stream, so you should be able to see that. Now, the question was basically with the RRS system, the regulatory request system. Last Monday, they had announced the fact that you could do certain submissions, and it would allow you to do a pretty much no permit required or no PCN required notification. I guess no permit required. And the question was, what happens if you have a wetland on the property? It will not issue the automated NPR letter, and that was what they were wondering about, even if it's quote unquote clearly isolated. So what's an example when this could be used? Well, the situation, I was looking at some of the nationwide permits. This is going to apply strictly to nationwide permits. You're not going to get this with the an AJD or anything like that. You're going to be doing this with nationwide permits. So for example, let me just flip this to here, and I will cut to that. Let me turn this off so you can actually read it. Too many things going on here at once. You can see here, I'm using the nationwide 14 as an example. So if a nationwide 14 and there's a limit of a half an acre non-tidal wetlands or a third of an acre tidal wetlands, and it says less than a tenth of an acre discharges into special aquatic sites. And what this is dealing with is a pre-construction threshold notification. You only have to notify them if you're going to disturb more than 1/10 of an acre. So in theory, if you were submitting to your RRS, presumably the automation would be, let's say I was going to do, you know, 1/20 of an acre or something like that. Then theoretically that's less than 1/10 of an acre. So therefore I shouldn't need the RRS to, or basically should issue that out. Now, the only problem is discharges into special aquatic sites, of which wetlands are one of them. So a lot of these you will see in here, discharges into special aquatic sites. And I think this is a way to avoid that. The issue is, by definition, a wetland is a special aquatic site. I'll go to a few more of these. There's a couple more that say this. Where's one? A lot of them are all activities, so it just doesn't work. Well, getting into the all activities less. So here's one. Land-based renewable energy generation facilities. The discharge results in loss than greater than 1/10 of an acre. So in this instance, even if you had a wetland on site, according to this, if you did less than 1/10 of an acre impact, that should pop out as a no permit required, and then even if you had a wetland listed. So the idea there is that's sort of how this sort of tie together. But most of those say special aquatic sites, and again, a special aquatic sites is a wetland. So you kind of have to deal with is a wetland. So that's a long answer to a short question, but basically that was the idea, that the special aquatic site wetland issue is a problem for getting this automated NPR letter. So that's an example. But the only example I could use is when you don't actually have a wetland present, or if it's a wetland, then the particular permit, in case this land use generation facility, would be an issue there. So let me flip back over to this. So now I've got a lot of kind of odds and ends. I'm going to just flip out our phone number here again. Definitely want to get you to call in for some questions. We've got a lot to cover. And one of the questions also, and if you want to put this in the chat or the Q&A thing that we've got here, let me get this open so I can see it. If you do chat something, I can see it. Let's flip that down. The issue is, what's the best day for this radio show or TV show or whatever we're calling it, a video show, in terms of what is going to work out best for everybody? We're trying to find a kind of sweet spot for the day of the week, and summer's coming, and we know Fridays is going to be a problem. So we were kind of thinking, well, maybe we'll try this on a Wednesday. So we're going to do the next couple Wednesdays. As a matter of fact, I'll just flip this one over just in case you were wondering. Our next show will be on next Wednesday, so we'll be there. But basically, we are trying to get that going so we can get some dialogue going. We would love to get some advanced callers to give us a heads up they want to talk about something. We've got a lot of stuff coming up, and some pretty important stuff has come up. So I have kind of a presentation I'm going to do, and you're definitely welcome to call during it. And I'm going to flip over to our presentation because I wanted to go over a few things, and I took some things at face value and kind of tell you how I got here. So, oops, I got the wrong one here. Let me fade to this one. Just cut to that. Okay. Too many buttons. Okay. What we're basically looking at is, what is a wetland delineation? And, I kind of took it for face value that everybody knows what a wetland delineation is. And it kind of occurred to me that that's not necessarily the case. There are a lot of people that have no clue what a wetland delineation is. Mainly the folks that are doing a lot of the development work. They know that it's a pain, and they know they don't want to spend any money on it. But what is a wetland delineation? I'll just put myself up here. I can talk to you a little bit so I don't feel like I'm disappeared. But basically, what is a wetland delineation? So we thought we'd go through a quick review of what is a wetland delineation for the consultants out there. But then I want to roll into what is a wetland delineation, because this has been a problem. We have seen, I have gotten into some very awkward situations in the last few weeks dealing with reviewing work. We don't usually do consulting here, but we do kind of a QA/QC review program. And that is something that's become a bigger issue for us in terms of having to deal with this. And it's you get into these awkward conversations, especially when you might have a client involved or a customer or a student. Though I actually have not had anybody who's approached me asking me to review someone else's work that was actually a former student in terms of the work that I was reviewing. So I kind of take that as a good news. But let me get out of here and go to the next slide. So, okay. So some basics on a wetland delineation. The purpose of it is a field boundary process. We're basically studying where a wetland is, what it's a science-based decision, and this is truly a science-based decision. There is no art in this. There's been a lot of issues over the years about art and how art is um, I don't know. It just a lot of stuff with they view wetlands as some sort of art form, and I never quite got that. But it's not. It's science. So it's a science-based decision. We have a methodology. We have the Army Corps of Engineers methodology, and we determine whether it's an upland or a wetland, and we map the edge. And that is essentially what a wetland delineation is we map the edge. So that's not really rocket science. Now, to get to that point, we have three criteria. There's what's known as hydrophytic vegetation, wetland plants, hydric soils, basically those gray, kind of wet soils, and wetland hydrology, aka water. Each one of these is evaluated in a separate manner. We look at them independently, but they're basically looking at them in a separate manner. So we have three criteria, and we want to evaluate whether we have soils, vegetation, hydrology. And it literally is that we like to refer to it as, let me get my next slide, the three-legged stool. And under that, there's the issue of federal jurisdiction. And this is what gets weird about it. A wetland is not by definition jurisdictional. It is not subject to federal regulation right out of the gate. It may be, and so what we add is we add a fourth dimension, which is we could simplify it and just say jurisdictional. We could get more complicated and say it's connected somehow to something else is jurisdictional. But at the end of the day, it has to be jurisdictional to be federally regulated. And if it's not, it's not. So under the Clean Water Act, we have basically the definition of what's known as the waters of the United States. That's what's jurisdictional. And the hook on that is, why is it jurisdictional, is because it has some relation to commerce. Commerce connection gives us the connection to basically make something jurisdictional. Now, that is usually proven in terms of connections by a surface connection, and that's the Sackett issue. And then we have basically the Corps and EPA role in this. And the Corps basically acts as the lead agency in this. They basically deal with the footprint, this disturbance. They have the basically the regulations to deal with issuing permits and the things that they want to issue permits on. And then EPA also has a role in terms of water quality and things like that. So they're dealing with the water quality issues. So that's essentially the two roles are for that group. Now, from that, next slide, we have states. And actually, I might jump around here a little bit out of my presentation. Hold on a second. I'm gonna try something new and exciting on this thing. A lot of buttons. There is the issue of state rules, and there's additional protections and buffers and setbacks, and certain states have specific rules and certain states don't. Mere hours ago, and I'm going to go right to this one, we had this show up. You can see May 13th, which is, in fact, today. New report. This is from the Waterkeeper folks, the Waterkeeper Alliance down here. If you look who's doing this, it's the Waterkeeper Alliance. And this is a new document on protecting clean water at the state level after Sackett. So the Waterkeepers have gotten together and are putting out this, just put out this thing literally today. I have not had a chance to go through it, but it should be good reading. And basically the goal here is to, the heck with the federal government. Let's get the states to do this, which actually is sort of the mantra of the current administration. So, basically, if you can't beat them, join them, sort of on this front, which is, it's a lot easier to get a state to approve something than to get the entire federal government to approve something. So the goal here at the Waterkeeper level, and I admire them for doing this, is to get the states to do it. We have, some of the states we're in, like North Carolina's got some wackadoo laws about we don't want to be more restrictive than the federal government, things like that. And this is kind of to counter that. So if you get a chance to take a look at it, it's waterkeeper.org, and you'll see their news. And literally this was posted 3 hours ago. So I will first one to tell you, maybe it's, terrible report. Nobody likes it, but I suspect it's pretty good. The Waterkeepers are actually an interesting group of people. And, I think that it's probably going to be pretty good. So at any rate, I just wanted to give you a heads up about that, because that is just out today. So that's how the states roll into it. And then we get into the USDA, which is also an interesting thing. And this is kind of fun. A lot of the issues that the what is U.S. argument has been about, you've gotten heard a lot from the farm lobby. And they're all upset about, the what is U.S. definition and what does this mean to my farm and things like that. And ironically, none of the Clean Water Act changes really have much of an impact on the farmers. There were already exemptions in place. They persist. However, the farmers have another problem. They have to deal with wetlands, and the wetlands are essentially protected because the farmer has agreed to protect them and in return for getting subsidies. And that is the Swampbuster compliance and there's farm benefit eligibilities, things like that. And the NRCS determinations of a wetland basically are the same determination, excuse me, as a Army Corps determination. However, there is no Waters of the United States establishment. They just simply say that it is a wetland, and a wetland by their definition would warrant certain protections. So definitely do that. While I'm thinking about it, was trying to get some calls in here, so I'll just pop our phone number here real quick. But definitely give us a call if you get a chance, 919-297-2540. I will just unpop that. Now, the issue is we have a jurisdictional tipping point, and this is where science meets law, criteria are met, connection is shown, and that's when regulation begins, and that's the tipping point. So we go from establishing something as a wetland or an aquatic resource to regulation begins, and this is kind of where we get into the jurisdictional end of it. Now, from that, we also ask a question. This has not been delved in much, and I would love to get a conversation going on this in terms of how folks are dealing with this. But can Congress, or should Congress, or will Congress respond to any of this? The issue is under the Supreme Court ruling of Sackett, the ruling basically is very narrowly defined as what Congress authorized as a waters of the United States. And whether it's constitutional or not ties into the commerce connection. That's the only real test it has to meet. Is it basically a commerce issue? If the answer is it's a commerce issue, then yes, it's jurisdictional. But proving that's a whole nother story. But then what do they want to include? The problem is when the Clean Water Act was drafted, no one ever said what a waters of the United States was. Matter of fact, they left it to the Corps to come up with regulations on that. But Congress can amend it, and they can basically interpret a statute, and they can set limits on this. They can say, we want this. Now, I'm pretty confident the second they do that, there'll be a challenge to it. And this is not on anybody's radar, but the bottom line is this is probably the long-term solution, is that instead of dealing with this at a regulatory level, we deal with this at a legal level and have Congress actually give us an answer. That would be fun. So we'll see what happens. All right. Now, the next phase of this is the ARDR, and this is where I've kind of lost my mind on where are we right now. I've actually reached out to the Corps to confirm a few things, and the problem is that the ARDR came out, and I think I've got a shot here. Do I have that one? Yeah, let me switch over. This came out last July, and essentially what this is required minimum standards for aquatic resource delineation reports. I'm taken aback. I have looked at a bunch of reports lately that have come across my desk on, I can't even call them reports, some basically loose strung together piles of paper of what people are calling a report. And the report basically consists of a couple of 8.5 by 11 maps, maybe a cut sheet of something, that would be hold on a second. Something along the lines of a wetland map, a USDA soil map, or an NWI map, things like that. And then they might have a couple data forms, and the data forms are absolutely awful, just absolutely awful in terms of many, many mistakes made. Well, this document basically has the elements of an aquatic resource delineation report. So we have background site information, and you can see a lot of stuff here. And they want a report, not just a bunch of, disconnected data. Field data collection methodology. Here's a concept, method, and materials. This is a scientific paper, methods and materials. Nothing new there, but we've needed to do this. I'm not sure when we stopped doing this. I think it was COVID. It's just sound conspiracy theory. Let me get me back on here so I can talk to you while I'm doing this. I think this was COVID when this happened. But we have a bunch of site condition descriptions, and then the aquatic resource inventory. And this is where you provide all the data and you do summaries and you basically put all that together. And then they want descriptions, physical connections, and then sporting maps, figures, and information. This is usually where you're going to include your data forms, your delineation map. And the Corps made this bold on here. Very bold. Important, delineation map should not include any label regarding the jurisdictional status of a delineated aquatic resource. So if you put on your data, on your survey map, this is the jurisdictional wetland, this is the non-jurisdictional wetland, blah, blah. The Corps is going to be like, yeah, well, that's not your call, and we don't like it, and they may bounce it. And that was actually the question I put forward to the Corps was, what's the QA/QC procedure on their end on doing this? Like, what happens when you submit junk? Flat out junk, and what do they do? Do they respond to it? Do they not respond to it? I can't believe some of the stuff I've seen that people actually got paid to do the stuff that was submitted, to be honest with you. But I'm kind of taken aback by that. I will say that nothing that we've looked at came from one of our students. I'm just going to say, just saying. So, and we also, just as a side point, Renee keeps poking me, we do offer a class in this, by the way, the ARDR class. We actually coordinated that with the Corps last year. And they didn't do a complete review of it, but basically we were in correspondence with them about this. They were very excited to hear that we were doing this, and kind of wish they would do something on their own so that we kind of get implemented. The issue is right now the Corps does not, well, I don't know about this moment, but a few weeks ago this was not mandatory that you had to do this full ARDR, but the way the RRS is shaping out, if you want to use it and you want to get a response that you're hoping to get, you really ought to have an RR, basically have this full report put together. So that's going on. And just a few more things just to kind of scroll through here, but you can see all the stuff. Actually, go back to the wetland maps here, or the data points. For wetlands, at least one set of prepared upland wetland sampling points should be provided for each delineated wetland boundary in accordance with procedures described in the 87 manual. And then they also, the use of transects should be considered for wetland complexes exceed 5 acres. So they're even doing that. So we're doing the transect approach. So this, bringing back oldies but goodies. And things on the data points are kind of staggering. Some of the things, like when you fill out the data form, it asks, what LR are you in? Well, maybe you ought to check before you fill out the form. Maybe you should have used the right form. There is actually a new set of forms out that you have to get off the website, that it's an ENG approved form. We're not just using the form in the back of the manual. It's still version 2, so nothing there has really changed, but they do have a new approval process and forms. Whenever the government uses a form, there's supposed to be a number that goes along with it. So that's a new thing that they kind of pushed out in the last year or so. But we've got a whole bunch of data that they want, and you can see this is intense. And there's standards, what should be on here. And this makes my English teacher very happy. And there's templates in here. So this is a good document to get. If you don't have it, you can just download it off the Corps. Just look up, ARDR methodologies, or take our class. I'll mention that again. So that's essentially the ARDR part. Let me jump back to our presentation here. I'm just going to fade back over, and I'll get rid of me because I'm taking up half of this. Bye. I'm getting good at this pushing the button thing. And just as a reminder, if we can get some calls in here, that would be great. So there's our call-in number. So basically, it helps the Army Corps efficiently review and verify delineation. The goal here is that the better you're reporting, the better, essentially the result's going to be for the client and the consultant, in that they're asking for information. We'll give it to them. Give it to them. They want to know what it is that is going on out there. So tell them, and don't get cute on it. Now, what an ARDR is not is also important. It does not automatically issue a jurisdictional determination. So you may have the greatest things since peanut butter. You may have all kinds of descriptions of what and where and why your site is or is not jurisdictional. And you have to be careful how you write it, because you're not supposed to make a jurisdictional determination as the consultant. That's up to the Corps. So it should avoid unsupported jurisdictional conclusions. But it should document aquatic resources and supporting field evidence. Now, what is an aquatic resource? An aquatic resource is anything basically that you can map, whether it's a wetland or not, or whether it's jurisdictional or not is immaterial. You just simply need to map it. So it's a stream, a pond, anything basically that you would consider an aquatic resource. So a wetland, anything like that. And the Corps handles the jurisdictional determination through its own review process. So it's going to come out of that. So, as far as the questions that have come in, the issue really is a matter of whether or not the Corps has a, basically, how they're going to answer that question, I guess, is kind of up in the air. Let me just see if I get any questions yet. Nope. Okay. So let me change the next slide. Now, on that topic, let me turn this off. Find it. On that topic, when we apply for a jurisdictional determination or a permit, there are three options that basically can come out of it. The ARDR is just simply the report, and that's the way to think of it. It documents the aquatic resources, irrespective of whether they are jurisdictional or not. That's up to the Corps. The PJD and the AJD and the delineation concurrence are basically your outcomes on this. Now, I'll start with the AJD. That's the old tried and true one. And this all goes back to 2016, believe it or not, when actually PJD was out before that, but it was formalized in 2016. And the AJD is the official gold seal of approval that the Army Corps of Engineers has gone out, verified the extent of the wetlands on the site, and then has basically established the jurisdictional delineation, aspect of it. So is it in fact jurisdictional or not? And that's what the AJD does. The PJD came out as kind of a tool, and I hated them. I've always hated them. Everybody thinks I'm crazy because it's like, why don't you like PJDs? And here's why. The PJD basically treats all aquatic resources as potentially jurisdictional. So whether it is jurisdictional or not is never discussed. And the problem is that you may find yourself in a mitigation situation with the PJD on a wetland that, if you were actually to ask for the true AJD, might turn out to be non-jurisdictional. Now, I think there's this myth out there in the developer world that, maybe if I apply for something that's clearly non-jurisdictional, the Corps will just be good people, and they will just say, that's true. That's truly not jurisdictional. So we're not going to make you mitigate for it, or whatever. Let's say you exceed the minimum standards for the, or you're in still a nationwide permit, but you're above the mitigation threshold. So you're going to have to mitigate, or the non-mitigation threshold, I should say. So surely they won't make you mitigate, if it turns out to be non-jurisdictional. Well, the problem is they don't ever answer the question. They just simply say that if the site were to be jurisdictional, you would need to mitigate at this level. And believe it or not, there have been companies out there that have paid for mitigation that didn't need to, and in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. And this adds up quite a bit. So the developers look at it and they say, well, if I get a PJD, rapidly I can get my answer in 30 days. I apply for the permit, I get my permit, and they say, yes, well, there's potentially jurisdictional wetlands out there. We'll treat them as jurisdictional, and we're going to give you a permit based on that. And that permit will basically say, okay, you're good to go. And oh, by the way, you need $500,000 worth of mitigation, and they're like, okay, fine. Now, maybe if you're building a massive subdivision and, that doesn't matter that much to you, I personally could use the extra $500,000 myself. I don't know that I could just come up with that. So the idea is that mitigation's expensive. And it's not hard to get way up there in prices, especially if you deal with streams and things like that. So the idea is that with the PJD, the assumption is it's jurisdictional, and, you're going to mitigate for it. You're going to get permitted. And then if it turns out to be non-jurisdictional later on, oh, well. So now if you get a PJD and it turns out to be non-jurisdictional or jurisdictional, then you're covered. That's the idea. You've covered it. But given that things have been scaled back so much, especially with the Sackett ruling, it's more likely, believe it or not, now sit down for this one, it is more likely that if you were to use a PJD, you would over-delineate your wetlands and you'd be asked to mitigate for things that aren't jurisdictional anymore, than if you did a PJD and it turned out that if you had done an AJD, it would have been jurisdictional anyway. And I think that's the difference. So there's been a big change, and it's taken us a while to get there in terms of realizing the implications of this. And I'm personally aware of a couple of these cases right now. So it's a big deal. It's a big deal. Now, the last one on this came out a couple of years ago, the delineation concurrence. And effectively, that is I don't know. That's another one. It's actually an email. It's a boilerplate email. And I think it's what the RRS is trying to get to with this sort of, mindset that you can just submit certain things automatically. They'll spit it back out. The way to think of it is it's a PJD without any field work. The difference is with a PJD, presumably the Corps does go out. They don't have to, but they do go out and review the site. A delineation concurrence relies strictly on the GIS mapping and things like that, and there's no field work involved. Now, that could also be on the consultant side. There may be no field work involved. I would think it'd be foolish to do that, but regardless, that's what you're up to. So the delineation concurrence would be a PJD without field work is the way to think of it. So the developers need to know which document, which way they're going and relying on it for permitting RRS's inputs and closing decisions. So this is a big deal. So it's a big, big deal. And it's kind of a change in the business that we're doing. And it underscores the quality of the work that we're doing as well. So we need to be very cognizant of that. Now, on that note, I'm going to throw a couple of plugs in here, some shameless plugs for our programs. We are doing a free lunch and learn. Free. Now, we're not buying you lunch. I will admit that. You provide the lunch. We'll provide the learn, is the way I'm putting it. But basically, this is for anybody who's doing, has a group of people, and we've got two versions of this class. It's meant to be about a half an hour to an hour, maybe, depends on how long I've drone on for. But basically, this is going to be a class that will be just for a group of people. So it would be a, break room kind of thing, put us up on the TV. And then we have a variety of ways of broadcasting it. We can do the old Zoom meeting type thing, or actually we use the Microsoft Teams thing, or we can do it this way. Either way, we actually have the interactivity and, call in and speaker phones and all kind of stuff. So we can do a lot of different ways of broadcast this, but this is meant to be free. If you would like to participate in this, send us a note at support@swampschool.org. Just include your name and name of your company and, when you think you might want to do it. And again, it's meant to be a lunchtime thing. And, we understand we have people literally all over the world on this show. So lunch might be, 9:00 at night here, or, I don't know, 4:00 in the afternoon. So it depends upon where you're calling from, which is fine. And we'll work with that. We have a reason for doing this. And the reason is really, really focused on the quality of work that has been going on. There are a lot of outdated wetland delineation practices out there, and the errors that have come out on this. And I blame it largely on training. And I know we're a training company, and this is a shameless plug for our training, but it's important because the issue is that not everybody is trained to do this work. And I don't know if it's just simply the fact that we've got, so much work going on. You throw somebody out in the field, they may take a class, they may not take a class, they may have picked up a book, or maybe they just followed along with somebody else, and all of a sudden they're making these multi-million-dollar decisions. And the clients don't realize this is going on. They assume that, when they hire you, you're an expert and you should know what you're doing. Well, hopefully that's the case, but, there's a lot going on and pressure getting businesses and, stuff. And like I said, I've just been taken aback by what I would call stuff I would never approve of. I mean, if it ever came out of my shop, I'd be firing the people. To be honest with you, I've fired many people in my career. So this is nothing I should be proud of. But it's the bottom line is that we have a level of expectation of the quality of performance, and it seems like we're in this good enough kind of mindset. We don't really have to go the extra mile on this, and simple little things like use the right form. Or understand how to fill out the soil part. And actually, we have so many students go through our program, and I'm kind of shocked, they may have been doing this for a few years and they've never filled out a soil form correctly. Didn't understand half of the stuff on there. And that's what the training is for. So it is really, really important on that. So I'd love to hear from you on this. If anybody's got some experience with this or would like to call in, I definitely would like to hear from you. Let me go to our last slide here, and I will jump back to me. A couple of just shameless plugs again, too. Next week, we've got some classes, and actually, we're going to incorporate the wetlands and real estate class that we have here in Apex. It's actually a North Carolina uh, approved Board of Realtors approved class, and we have a bunch of folks that will be in on that one, and it's um, pretty important. We actually would also recommend the hydric soil indicators and what you need to know online webinar. We're going to be doing that, and we're also I think we're going to fill out the data form too. I was thinking about doing this, and I was like, the 10 indicators you need to know, plus how to fill out the form. So both of those are going to be pretty good. That's a webinar. Both of these are relative. That's meant to be about an hour plus webinar. The Tuesday class is about a 4 hour. It's required by the Real Estate Commission to be a 4 hour class. You do get continuing ed credits if you do want to come to it. We have a lot of people that take that class just because they want to learn more about it. We get a lot of folks that are developers or working in that arena that do that kind of stuff. We also, if you are a supervisor of wetland people, that's not a bad class to hop in on too. Plus, you can rub elbows with potentially some of your clients. But we do want to see the supervisors getting in more and more involved in these programs, because we're seeing some of that as the problem is that a lot of the folks that we hear from say, oh, well, this is the way my company's done it, and this is the way it's always been done. And it turns out they've been doing it wrong the whole time. And, if you do something wrong for 20 years, at what point is it right? I don't know. So a couple other things. We've got the macroinvertebrate class, and we have our delineation class coming up in June. So those are coming up on next month, and we're pretty full on those, actually, to be honest with you. I'd love to get some more people in the macroinvertebrate class. That's coming up pretty quick. And Greg, who teaches that class, also teaches it for the state. He's one of the certified macro persons, and he does the class for their surface water training program. So it's a pretty cool class, and it's got some great sites. We just had a class a couple weeks ago, so that's a lot of fun. I think it was last week, actually. And let me go to one more thing here I have, which is this one, and we will fade over. We also have a bunch of job postings. This is off our website. We put up a website, basically jobs that folks have emailed us, and these are relatively recent. We had a couple days ago. One's from Tetra Tech. The other's Breedlove Dennis and Associates. I used to be able to say Rahid. I can't say it. Radke. They have a couple jobs out in Washington. They approached us a while back. So these are some active jobs if you are looking for a job or know somebody looking for a job, or if you need to post a job. Just let us know, reach out to us. And again, the best way to do that, I'll just put our little support thing up here. But you can reach out to us and send us a ticket at support@swampschool.org, and we will be glad to post those for you and keep you up to date on all the different things that we're up to there. So that is about it. I think we had a couple things. I do want to just, let me just flip over to this one. And if just to kind of keep up with things, let me just turn this off. We have turn that one off. Okay. Go away. Stop it. Okay. This is just off our website. We've added a few things just as a by the way. You can see we've got we put up these little cards for the different classes that are coming up. So we're trying to keep these focused on here. If you want to sign up for the Lunch and Learn, you can click over to here. And we have a little video on what's going on with that. So you get a little 4-minute video on what basically the topic is if you want to know. And then we did ask you whether it was a consultant or a developer/realtor. We're trying to, it's a little different message. Obviously, if you're a consultant, it's more on the technical end. On the developer side, it's more on kind of what they need to know. So we have a little different focus on those. So that is also coming up. So definitely let us know if you would be interested in that. I think it'll be a lot of fun, and we'll be just doing those when we can fit them in, and just let us know. So I will, let me just flip back to me. And again, a lot of the focus that we're running into on this, and I'm looking for some questions. If we can get some in last minute, I'll just throw the phone number up there. We'd love to hear from you if you can call in. And maybe Wednesday isn't the best day. I don't know. We'll find out. We did put on the website also. Let me actually go back to that. No, I can't do that because it'll just be a super echo thing. On the site you're watching on, there should be below the the video, there was a little poll. If you'd fill that out, let us know what day you think would work best for you. And we're trying to accommodate you a little bit. We're kind of thinking Mondays and Fridays are not really the best time to do this because, either they're, I understand, it's kind of the end of the week and you've got the time to ponder this. But the flip side of it, we had a pretty good activity last go around. But the problem is that we got a lot of people taking off and, schedule issues and travel issues and things like that as we get into the summer months. So that could be a problem. But, we'll move to accommodate if that's what folks want. But, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we do a lot of classes Tuesdays and Thursdays. So we thought Wednesday was kind of a sweet spot, but, we'll see. But again, we're also going to be doing this on YouTube. So if you are a YouTube person and like to watch stuff on YouTube, this will be broadcast shortly. We'll actually get that back up there. And would really appreciate if you could like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And let me just pull that up real quick so you can see where we're at here. So we have that. I can never remember where that is. YouTube. There we go. And let me flip over. And we turn that off. So this is our channel. We've got a bunch of new videos up on here. We have actually the live broadcast is this one, I believe. No, that's live videos. The playlist. Let me get this right. I will get this right sooner or later. Yeah, and here's our live broadcast. I don't want to play. Don't play. No. I need to get back to the view the playlist. Don't want to delete it. I forgot. Anyway, there's a bunch. There's a way to get to that. I just don't know how to open it up. I think as I'm in some sort of mode here. But anyway, we've got a bunch of different ones. We've been doing these shorts. We've got 69 videos as of right now. These are all sort of real quick, 60 to 90 second long, something you need to know about wetlands kind of stuff. We've also got law and policy issues. There's a lot of videos on different aspects, cultural resources. The Tales from the Marsh is, see if I can click that without starting it. No, I don't think so. That won't let me do that. But basically, these are some of the things that we have available to you. So there's a lot of stuff here. We're really looking for more subscribers. So definitely, if you could subscribe, we'd appreciate it, and like us and all that kind of good stuff. And you can see we've got a lot of stuff on here. So this useful information stuff that we cover in class. And it's meant to be a little bit of DIY. We're actually going to get into some of the details of some of the details that you have with the techniques and procedures and things. We thought we'd do that. I was thinking about doing one on leveling, how to set up a laser level, how to do a backsite, kind of stuff like that. And we do those in maybe, I don't think we can do that in 60 seconds, maybe 5 minutes, do a couple setups on that. And have some fun with that one. So I'm looking for some ideas. So also, if anybody has any suggestions on that, we'd love to hear from you. So, definitely drop us a line. Let me put the email back up real quick. And if you want to, where did I go? I went somewhere. Let me put me back up here. So if you want to send us hey, I'd like to see a video on this, or I'm interested in that, or that would be a great thing to cover, definitely reach out to us. Let us know what that is. So with that, I think we've covered pretty much everything we need to cover. If anyone has any additional questions, I would take them now, or we can just say goodbye. So looks like that's what's going to happen. So let me jump back over to me. So, and I don't need to be doing this twice. Lots of buttons. I think there's a way I could show you all the buttons I have. I have 21 different things going on at once. So that's a level of multitasking I don't know that I've ever done before. But anyway, that's fun. So anyway, I really appreciate you hanging on with us and going through this. Definitely let us know if you have any questions. Follow up offline. We'll answer them next time like we just did. And we look forward to seeing you in the swamp. And again, I hope to see you soon. And I will switch us over to our outro.